This is the Owl Palms City Council public hearing. Today is April the 24th, and it's 5:45. I'd like to call this meeting to order and acknowledge that both the press and the public were duly notified of this hearing in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. The purpose of this is an ordinance amending Title V Planning and Development, Chapter 4 Zoning, Article 8, Flood Damage Prevention, is to provide a definition for the new reference datum to be used for the base flood elevation. This is to provide a minimum elevation for residential and non-residential construction. And beyond that, I'm going to let Douglas carry it away.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my cue every time. I think this is the second public hearing on this issue, and we'll go over it all, but then we'll talk a little bit about the specific changes that have been made since the last public hearing. These changes are being made in reaction to newly proposed flood maps being published by FEMA. Those maps came out, or the preliminary maps came out in September of last year. It was noticed that the required elevation on those maps dropped significantly. The required elevation on those maps shows typically on the ocean front a requirement of 10 feet, your house being elevated to 10 feet above sea level, which is only a couple of feet off the ground. Second and third row properties are typically out of the flood zone entirely, so they could build right on the ground. And then when you get back from the second and third row, it goes back into a flood zone requiring 9 or 10 feet, depending on the area. So the issue went to the Planning Commission for study. The Planning Commission did a number of things, including looking at historical floods and the damage associated with those, and identified the floodwaters associated with those floods. And they came up with a recommendation of requiring regardless of what the FEMA maps say, requiring a flood elevation of an elevation of new houses at 14 feet. That was Hugo's flood elevation plus 1 foot, and that was the basis for that recommendation. It also 14 feet also aligned nicely with the current maps, the minimum requirement on those current maps. So that's kind of what the city has been working with since 1991, an elevation roughly of 14 feet, and then up from there in a lot of places. So that's really where the Planning Commission, their first recommendation was pointed. That came to this body. There were some concerned citizens and concerned council members concerned about how those regulations would impact existing homes that were not elevated, and that led to a discussion of the 50% rule and imposing this new voluntary standard on houses that are lower, older, less valuable, and how that might impact those houses and their ability to rebuild. So the issue went back for additional study to the Planning Commission, and came back here for more discussion. And what you have tonight is an ordinance that still has the minimum standard of 14 feet for new houses, but it does two very important things for the existing houses. The first thing is it eliminates the cumulative provision of the 50% rule. So previously, my office would add up the value of all of the permits for a 5-year period and then compare that against the value of the house, and if it exceeded 50% of the value, you'd have to elevate your house. This code eliminates that entirely, so theoretically somebody could do 50% each year or with each project. That is an island-wide change in the code. So those are the first two. The third thing that this code would do is it does away with the 50% rule entirely for those areas that are compliant with the FEMA elevation requirements. So those areas that I was saying are outside of the floodplain entirely. If those houses, older houses outside of the FEMA floodplain, there would be no 50% rule for them. And those, like I said, those changes to the 50% rule are kind of the additional changes that would need to be amended at your regular council meeting if you choose to do that. And that's it. Thank you.
Before you sit down, let's see if there's any questions.
You want to do that now, or you want to do it during the meeting?
Just
Looks like we have time now.
we have time. Hearing none, I guess we'll.
No, I think that addresses it, because the question I had was, when Paul Urbana was asking, back at the beginning of this, somebody in a lesser valued older home that is compliant to the new FEMA code, they have the opportunity, I'm going to assume that there's 50% damage during a storm, they have the opportunity to rebuild without elevating their home to 40%.
That's correct. If they're compliant with the FEMA standard, that is correct.
If they're not, then frankly, they would have the same issue before any of these ordinances came up.
That's correct. Yeah, and that reminds me of a good point, that the substantial repair provisions stay unchanged, and that really, there is no, so that kind of stays the way it is. If a hurricane damages your house more than 50%, the FEMA minimum standard would require that house be elevated. So that is the way, and that's just a minimum standard that we have to comply with.
That's FEMA.
Yes.
Yeah.
FEMA minimum standard.
Douglas, since we do have time, I'd like to use it. Not that we all necessarily agree with FEMA's new rationale. This is a result that we are listening to the residents of Isle of Palms and the concerns they brought forward.
That's correct. Yeah, the additional work that was done on the older, unelevated homes is exactly that, a response to the concerns raised by the residents.
Do you see, or did the commission talk about any negative unintended consequences of these changes?
Well, and there was a lot of talk about this choice between a flood resilient community and a community that is preserving some semblance of affordable housing. And I would say, in my opinion, this ordinance is favoring the affordable housing side and basically diminishing a bit the flood resiliency of the community. So, in the event that we have another Hurricane Hugo, God forbid, you have the potential for having houses that are lower, that have had a lot of money put into them, and we've knowingly allowed that. Now, how many of those houses will put in that much money into a house, but this is creating that possibility.
And we do this in the face of rising sea level, issues that we deal with drainage on the island, and the threat of a possible safety risk.
That's correct.
FEMA.
No, it's not FEMA. We're talking about our changes.
Yes, ma'am.
I see the advantage of retaining the value of the current structures that are on the ground. The Planning Commission actually recommended a 1-year cumulative 50% tracking. Do you think that is better than no limit in terms of retaining affordability? My concern is that you may have someone come in and fix up a lot of these older houses to the degree that they're no longer affordable for some, do you understand my concern?
Yes, I do, and I think, it's a judgment on where you want to come down on the issue. Do you want to come down as being completely in favor of preserving the old houses kind of at the expense of resilience, or I would say the Planning Commission's recommendation for 1 year was an attempt to kind of compromise and split the difference. But I think it was the will of this group to go even farther than that and do away with the cumulative provision altogether. So it's just a judgment call.
Just a little point. Aside from affordability, I also think it allows maybe some people to age in place and you know, be more appealing for people as they get older. Not, I know there's elevators, but elevators are not always the simplest things, but I do think it also is very friendly to people who want to age in place, not just affordability. I just want to point that out.
And Doug, the thing is, people talk about adding on and substantially improving it. If you're adding on to a structure that's below flood, you're limited to your, to basically your FEMA regulations. It's $250,000. So some common sense is going to be in play there, where somebody's not going to add on, you know, $750 million to a ranch in order for not to be covered. So, and this still gives them the option to go through add-on to a point where, you know, it's still within that coverage zone. And you can't do that within 1 year. Basically, most of these structures are valued at $100,000. To put $50,000 into a structure, that's, I don't know, a bathroom and you know, a new roof or something, you know, or you know, even aging in place is, the walkways and
Right.
so cripple shower. It all adds up, and you know, the construction out here on the island at, you know, $250 a foot right now, or $300 a foot. Some places it's not a whole lot of room. So.
Just a quick question. When you say there's a $250,000, is that an insurance capability through FEMA?
Yeah,
Is that what you're referring to?
that's the limits of how much they'll pay you. If you have a claim, that's the limits of the National Flood Insurance Program payback is $250.
There's no
So
sense of building, you know, a structure larger than that if you're really going to capture $250,000.
So you got
of it.
that
Right.
in place to kind of serve as a stop.
Correct.
Yeah.
yeah, there were a lot of these kind of outside issues that the Planning Commission talked a lot about. You know, where there's still this lingering, this Biggert Waters Act requirements that we understand are going to ratchet up the insurance costs on these houses that are below flood. So there would be an incentive from affordable insurance to elevate. We talked a lot about how the cost of improvements has gone up, how the appraisers are putting less and less value on the building. So you do kind of have a real conundrum of that leaves people with the inability to do much work on these old houses.
Right.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That adjourns this portion of the special public hearing. And we now have, let's see, 2 minutes to kill.
Yes, 2 minutes.
Welcome, everyone. This is Isle Palm City Council. It's Tuesday the 24th, 6 p.m. I welcome everyone to be here. First off, I'd like to make sure everyone knows that both the press and the public were duly notified in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. If you would, feel free to join me as I pray, to be followed by the allegiance and the roll call. Dear wise and loving Father, thank you for this time of the year when the vibrant greens and color of the low country show their glory. We thank you for life itself, and we ask you to look over those who may have lost loved ones, or those who may be sick or have family members who may be sick. We thank you for our freedom and rights to gather and making decisions that affect our community. We ask for your guidance in making the right choices that affect our island both now and for generations to come. In closing, we ask that you look over and protect those near and far who risk their lives in protecting ours. It is in your name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Marie, if you would, be so kind.
Councilmember Bell. Here. Councilmember Buchanan.
Here.
Councilmember Perrin.
Here.
Councilmember Kinghorn.
Here.
Councilmember Moy.
Here.
Councilmember Wright.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Mayor Cronin.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
I have been fired.
Right here.
There's definitely no recall.
Just seeing if we're paying attention.
I am here.
Administrator Tucker. Here. And Attorney Halver's here.
That was the shortest career I had.
I'm so embarrassed that I can-
Don't be embarrassed, Marie, with me.
Attorney Satilli.
Okay, first, next order of business will be the reading of previous meetings. And to keep it brief, we have special meetings as of March 14th, the 20th, the 21st, and 3 on the 27th. Do I have a motion to approve those meetings?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Next order of business, citizens' comments. So would anyone out there like to talk about our island or give us suggestions? Going once? There we go. Joey had to have somebody.
Jay Clark, Morgan Creek Grill. Brian and I were deliberating whether to come up or not, but just regarding the parking on 41st and any amendments or changes to it, I don't see it in 9F, but wanted to inform the council that we had a tenants meeting a few days ago, and would like to give some input, if possible, as to what the council is going to do with that, and maybe at the real property meeting, the next one coming up, and I don't know if that's in order or not, but I didn't see it printed out that there was something coming tonight regarding 41st.
It is in there.
It's in there.
It is in there? Okay. So
We'll address it.
okay, fine, thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, moving on. We have the pleasure of swearing in a new city employee. Firefighter Michael Lord, would you please come forward?
Y'all can chat, I'll be right back.
And this is,
Where he's going to get the Bible, I think.
I got a nap for that. If you want to hear that.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Not quite as ceremonial.
welcome aboard. Thank you. No, back there. I keep an eye on them.
Should we go ahead and have Michael do his speech now?
Right.
By the way, we've been talking about trying to keep our speeches less than 30 minutes. And I hope you realize we like to have fun on Isle of Palms, and you got a great crew you're working with. And
Beautiful place.
we'll talk about you here in a second. They gave me all kinds, 5 pages of stuff. I had to narrow it down to some specifics.
It's ironic that the meeting that we talked about trying to be more efficient. One
Just-
go by.
I know, I just can't. We're just destined to be here for 3 o'clock.
Right.
It's just we're preordained.
Where did I put that Bible? It's right here. Where is it?
So
I'm
there's,
sorry, Chief, I'm sorry.
there is an app for that.
Yes, there is.
I do that to everybody. I always can't do that.
Yay!
Might want to stand up here. And probably go to the center so we can get your picture. Okay. Left hand on the,
Yeah.
right hand in the air. All right. Repeat after me. I, Michael Lord, do solemnly swear
I, Michael Lord, do solemnly
that
swear
I am duly qualified according to the ordinances of the city of Isle of Palms
I am duly qualified
according
according to the city ordinances of the
City
City of
of-
Isle of Palms,
to perform the duties of the position
to perform the duties of the position
to which I have been selected,
to which I have been selected,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my
to
abilities,
the best of my abilities,
discharge the duties thereof,
to
discharge,
discharge the duties thereof,
so help me God.
so help me God.
A little background.
Thank you.
Michael's fire service career began 13 years ago in Somerville as a fire and rescue volunteer. Soon after that, he was hired as a full-time firefighter and was sent to the South Carolina Fire Academy recruit program. In 2015, he obtained his associates in fire science. Michael has always enjoyed the coastal atmosphere, which is why he decided to seek an opportunity here in Isle of Palms. And I promise you, you'll love it here in Isle of Palms. Michael has a girlfriend, Samantha, and a 4-year-old son, Michael James Lord III. Welcome aboard to Isle of Palms. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, we're about to take care of it. Okay. We're on it.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we go ahead and approve Michael Lord's boyfriend.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. He's in.
He's out. He's out.
Well, when he took me literally when I said we're going to keep this short, right? Okay. Moving on to number 5, reports from standing committees. Ways and Means.
Check the time here. Ways and Means Committee meeting was on April 17th, 2018. And I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis about what happened. Debbie gave her report on the financials. Revenues, overall, all funds are at 60% of the budget, and expenditures are at 56% of budget. This is as of March 31st, 2018. All fund balances combined are $21,950,000. General fund year-to-date revenues, everything is almost at 100% except for a couple of small ones. Business license and rental license. Business license, they're technically not due until April 30th. But they're right at it. So we're overall 102% the prior year to date. General fund expenditures, 9-month target 75%, and we're under it at 71%. Cash balance is $3/31/2017 was $21,010,000, and this year is $17,821,000. So you can read what happened in the tourism funds, all the projects on your own, and we'll just go right into the recommendations that we had to approve or disapprove. First one was number 1 is recommendation from the ATAX committee for sponsorship in the amount of $10,000 for South Carolina Aquarium Turtle Trek 5K Sunset Beach Run on Saturday, September 29th, 2018 at 5:30.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays?
Second was recommendation from the Public Works Committee to approve up to $20,000 for the replacement of the white fencing at Oceanside condominiums.
I'd like to make that in the form of a motion.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to mention for the public that it's on the public property adjacent to the Oceanside condominiums, not on the Oceanside condominiums property.
We own them, we're putting them back.
Yes.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it.
Number 3, recommendation from the Public Safety Committee to award a contract to Safety Industries in the amount of $849,500 for one 2018 E1 75-foot ladder truck.
So moved.
We have a motion, and we have a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Down here.
Yes, sir.
My understanding was that the way this is worded, it sounds like we are paying entirely for the truck. My understanding was that we wanted to consider financing.
And
this mine?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay, so you're correct, and that is the wording that came right off of the prior agenda, but the change has been made and is reflected and contemplated in your gray budget. If you look at page 44 of your gray budget, you will see the principal debt service and also the interest debt service for the ladder truck. So the wording is the same, but the staff understood the intent that rather than doing the down payment and a full payment out of the resources available, it was your desire for us to do a lease purchase for this fire truck. So, and the gray budget depicts that. So I think you see that staff lived up to what you asked us to do by examining the gray budget.
And further, the gray budget also has, it's an in and out. It's the revenues coming in from the lease proceeds and then going out. We are going to finance it. Debbie and I talked about that this afternoon. So it's going to increase the revenues overall and then back it back out. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Just one other point of clarification for the public. Even though we're making a $200,000 down payment, that's to get the process of build started for the truck. We have the option of going back to $1 on lease purchase, correct?
So our understanding from the Ways and Means Committee meeting was that you wanted to finance 100% of it and not make the down payment. We could easily adapt to doing the down payment this year and financing the balance if that's the wish of the group, but the way we contemplated it for the gray budget was financing 100% of it.
I thought we had to make
in 19.
Okay.
In 19.
Correct.
Perfect.
FY19.
That was a good question, John. Thank you, and Randy. Sir?
That's it. So you just call for a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays?
Number 4, recommendation from the Real Property Committee to approve up to $26,400 for plants to be planted on top of the new dunes in the project area to encourage dune growth. I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it.
Number 5, consideration of an award of a contract to Technology Solutions for IT services for $28,500 and an additional not to exceed $21,500 for additional hours as needed at $75 per hour. This comes in significantly under budget.
Make a motion to approve?
You had a motion down there.
All right.
You got a motion second.
All right, discussion. This is critical we get this one done.
Right.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays?
Number 6, recommendation from the ATAX Committee to fund overages in the fiscal year budget by $400 for irrigation at Breach Inlet, $500 for beach trash barrels, and by $1,032 for flood insurance premium on the restrooms, public restrooms, excuse me.
Now we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? None? Carries.
Number 7, in accordance with the Isle of Palms Procurement Code, Section 1-10- forward subparagraph B3 III something consideration of emergency repairs to the PSB emergency generator, $12,000 for the radiator, $9,000 for the installation hookup for the general rental generator. Excuse me.
Make that as a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Again, this is another one of those critical things. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays?
Okay. Last one, report in accordance with Chapter 20, purchasing, Section 1-10-3C, less than $25,000 and in the budget.
And
Love Chevrolet 2018 Chevrolet pickup truck for the building department. How old is that truck? The old truck.
I don't know the answer to that off the cuff. It's probably in the gray budget, but
Do you have
this
now
doesn't-
on it?
yeah, this does not require a vote.
107? Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, this is
make a
not-
motion to approve.
It doesn't require a vote. It's
Okay.
just a requirement in the procurement code that we report it to you. So that's
Okay. Well, then, that ends my report.
Great job. Just for everybody's purposes, we've been talking about our meetings running really long and talking about minutiae that doesn't need to be really discussed. So excuse if it seems like we're kind of pushing, but we're pushing because some of these meetings have been going 3 hours plus. So anyway, just wanted to explain why you hear us doing this tonight.
Well, we're not necessarily rushing it. We're just trying to be more efficient.
And there's also, you can go online, IOP.net, and all the minutes are there for everybody to read. So please, IOP.net.
And audio.
And audio.
And video.
And video.
This announcement was brought to you by the City Council of Isle of Pond.
Okay, moving along. Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to talk fast. Public Safety Committee met at 5 p.m. Monday, April 8th with city staff, myself, and council members Ward and Bow. We had citizens' comments from Rusty Williamson, who expressed concern about city collection of parking fines and follow-through. We had an update on coyote management from our police department, including Chief Buchanan, who reported that a third coyote has been was trapped in one of the soft leg traps on March 28th. The police department has applied for DNR permits to use the collarum traps, which is a different kind of trap that will be deployed as additions to the soft leg traps. The chief learned that the city would need a permit from DNR for a hunt if we were going to pursue that, and the city's insurance carrier stated with reasonable certainty that a hunt would be uninsurable. Captain Swain gave us a draft of a coyote management plan for consideration, but we are going to be looking back at that in our next committee meeting and getting further answers on a variety of questions. Captain Swain checked but could not find anyone willing to trap on a per coyote basis, which is something that we were discussing as or asking for. He did talk with one trapper who had been at the Coyote Expo and had mentioned to council members he would do that, but in following up said that the trap setting fee would be $60 and each coyote caught would be $300 to $350. The chief also checked with a successful trapper in North Carolina that some of us had heard about, and he is using similar traps and bait as Critter Control, our trapper, and he offered to assist us, but it would cost us $200 per day. We talked about the managed beach parking plan at length, mainly looking for potential changes that would help in the short term. We did not come up with any official recommendations for the council, but I will highlight a couple of points from our discussion. The city has had a hard time filling all of its BSO positions because they are seasonal part-time jobs, and by BSO I mean beach safety officers. I don't know if that is something maybe the personnel committee might want to consider. The chief said he did not think the city was charging enough for parking on Ocean Boulevard to turn street spaces over fast enough, and also suggested that enforcement by our beach safety officers could be easier if the city invested in segways. Microsurfacing, the report we received earlier this month said that it looked like patching would begin April 23rd and microsurfacing would be May 7th through 14th. Is that the latest?
Well, of course, it poured down yesterday.
Okay.
So we know that that's affected their schedule. It's going to have to dry it out. We have not gotten an updated schedule since the rain.
Okay. Let's see, we had a discussion of enforcement of parking and speeding due to concerns about the city's ability to fully pursue parking ticket offenses. We discussed, and the committee voted unanimously for ordinance changes to be researched that would allow vehicles to be towed or impounded when it is a public safety hazard. We also voted in favor of further changes that would allow for towing or immobilization of a vehicle with unpaid parking tickets after 30 days instead of 90. And Captain Estrie asked that we toggle of 3 or more unpaid tickets. It's currently 3 or more to be reduced to 1. And our attorney was going to be tightening up those and giving us, we have parking ordinances that we'll be looking at later in the meeting. Changes. Fiscal year budget, we discussed changes that have since been reviewed by full council in Budget and Ways and Means Committee meetings. We discussed safety concerns related to the location of benches at J.C. Long and Ocean Boulevard, which are bolted down, and whether they would prohibit a fire truck from turning onto Ocean Boulevard, and the chief will report back to us on that in May. Captain Usry previously gave us an update on the crosswalk at 20th Avenue and had inquired with Department of Transportation about possibilities for drawing greater attention to that crosswalk because of concerns that we were hearing from citizens. We learned that a crosswalk at that location would not be approved by DOT if requested today due to its location, nor would any lights or signals that draw greater attention to it. We also met in executive session to receive legal advice regarding potential claims related to enforcement of parking violations, but took no action in executive session. Our next meeting of the Public Safety Committee has been rescheduled from from our original discussion and is on the calendar now for 5 p.m. Wednesday, May 2nd.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good.
All right.
Yeah.
That was good.
Very good. All right, moving on to Public Works.
Okay, it's me. Public Works met at 9 a.m. Wednesday, April 4th. All committee members were present and staff. Chair Kinghorn resigned, and then I resigned as vice chair, and then I was elected chair, and Councilman Buchanan was elected vice chair. So we had a busy start to the meeting. We had the departmental report from Director Pitts, and he reported that miscellaneous garbage collection was up significantly in March from this time last year, and we think it was due to early spring cleaning. We got an update on the 32nd Street drainage issue, and there's been a lot of communication with the neighbors in Charleston County, stormwater team to schedule a meeting to discuss the issues, and Edie's quoted the city $152,500 to repair the problem, which is to change the elevation of the entire ditch. So it's none of it is easy. And we continue to work toward a solution. Thank you very much. Next, we discussed the Phase 2 drainage project, which is flowing right along. The assistant administrator filed for an extension of the rural infrastructure grant with a completion date now of September 2018. The project will be proceeding now to Palm Boulevard, and we are going to be very proactive in keeping Wild Dunes aware of the project status as their season is upon us. And we also do have a strong contingency fund for this project, so things look like they're in line. We discussed the need for additional staff in the Public Works Department. This has been a recurring topic for well over a year and is covered in the budget topic, but we did stress again how important this is in light of the continuity issues the city is facing, and that we just gotta have more help in that department. Let's see. This is my moving right along here. We discussed the condition of the white fencing and the municipal parking lot, and we've already covered that. So we can move right along from that. And we review and spoke at length about items to be included in this year's budget, with drainage as a very top priority to our residents. We consider now to be the time to discuss updating our drainage study. The Seabrook study was done 28 years ago, and I just want this to be in the back of everybody's mind as something that might be necessary to come flow back to the top of the...
It's all about flow.
It's all about the flow. And we agreed to design work to improve the waterway multi-use path, and again, that was also a high priority visioning workshop and something we talked about, and cost sharing with IOP Water and Sewer professional fees for the study toward the goal of island-wide sewer. and the drainage outfall improvements, and then we also approved the new positions in Public Works, actually both the assistant director and a part-time administrative assistant at that time. And we had a representative, Trey Little from Wild Dunes' engineering firm, Seaman Whitesides, and David Stevens was there, and they walked us through a map showing a drainage line from Drainage Phase 1 that needs to be relocated for the resorts hotel project that is coming down the pike. And we were assured that there will be no issue with the proposed relocation of this line. And then we did ask with great enthusiasm that this be done at the expense of the resort. We had no miscellaneous business, and our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 7th at 9 a.m., and that is the end of my report.
Good report. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, moving along. Then it was. I think you're right up there at the top.
Thank you.
Recreation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Recreation Committee met on April 3rd, 5 p.m. All committee members were present. Director Page gave her report, talked about the month's activities, which can be found also on the IOP.net. We had citizens' comments available. We had one person who come and wanted to propose a wrestling program on the beach, not wrestling, but wrestling, and because we had wrestling this weekend. We actually told him it wasn't probably doable in the city's public beaches, but to contact some other the private entities available. We had more discussion about the potential farmers market changes for 2018. We're still planning for the fall, not to interfere with the other ones that are going on locally. We talked about the opening of the rec center on Sundays, and we allocated funds in the budget for that for next year. We have consideration of policies related to our message board, and you guys have that attached as a new policy. And I would go ahead and we can go ahead and make a motion at this point.
It's fine. It's on the agenda later, but you can take care of it now.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the city's recommendation for a policy for the message board this time.
Second.
Discussion. So, the rationale behind it.
It's like one of those other things we have. I mean, it's all or none. Basically, we're starting to have complications and problems with groups wanting to utilize the message board, whether they're private or nonprofit or other programs that they wanted to utilize, and it was just hard to go through and meet everybody's demand for what needed on the message board. And there's a lot of times that we have stuff that we have that we need to have up there, and we can't have everybody's up there, and people are getting upset because
So basically, we're talking about city-sponsored events is what we're going to be doing.
City meetings.
Right.
City meetings, city-sponsored events, yes. Yeah. Anything that's involved in the city.
Yes, ma'am.
So like no meth fish fry, nothing like
No.
that anymore? No VFW?
No.
That hurts, but
That
at the same
does.
time, it's a lot of work for the recreation department, changing the signs.
And there's
Not
no-
everybody was included.
Right.
And
I mean, that's the problem. They picked out some of these
There was no
nonprofits,
guidelines.
and others were ignored.
Well, it couldn't be as
No.
No.
You gotta be all or nothing.
Yeah.
And you can't really make a judgment from one group to the next. If they fulfill the requirements, like if you made it on island, I mean, right now, probably all the groups that are on the island, you would be happy for them to have messages up there if there were room. But there might be groups that would come to the island that you might not be happy about the messages, but there would be nothing that you could do other than accommodate them.
And we've gone through, and the VFW and Methodist, I mean, they're putting out little signs now that are available, and we did it before the age of the internet and Facebook and social media, so a lot of those folks are actually being able to reach more people that way directly than they are passing the sign. So.
But a lot of that stuff, technically, Brian, is really illegal.
The small signs?
We ignore it because it's for nonprofits, but the way I understand from Douglas, like you can have signs the day of the event on the premises.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Right? Yeah, but they're the little signs. I mean, I'm not going to say anything about them. It's fine with me, but that's if we wanted to be.
Right.
go
Yep.
by law, that's it.
Okay, this is a resolution that was later on our agenda. We're talking about it now, so should we go ahead and go forward with this? Would that be the correct thing to do, Linda, or come back to it?
Well, you would want to make a motion to reorder the agenda to take.
We'll just wait.
We'll come back to it.
Okay.
Okay, then we went through and had some budget discussions. We were able to adjust some of the budget fees for next year's budget, increase some of them to make them comparable with other municipalities. We had some discussion of summer camp registration and the policies behind that and how we can better improve that. We had discussion of allowing full court basketball times for adults. And really, that was the end of our meeting. The next meeting is May 7th.
Okay.
Another outstanding report.
I didn't time. I think I delayed it when we talked about that.
Right.
So I think that we got tired.
It was under 10 minutes.
Okay, Personnel Committee.
Okay, do we have a little,
Yeah.
Right, right.
who's
You should have the sand through the hourglass.
Right, and.
We're going to get a gong.
Here we go. Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to report Personnel Committee met April 5th. All 3 council members were present. Staff present included City Administrator, Assistant City Administrator, Human Resources Officer, City Clerk, Public Works Director, and the Rec Center Director. Meeting minutes from March 12th were approved unanimously. We then, with no citizens' comments, we reordered the agenda to discuss number 5 under New Business C, recruitment services. After a report from our Human Services Officer and review of information she had gathered on several agencies available, it was determined that we need an agency fully qualified to address the Chief of Police, City Administrator, and Public Works Assistant Director of Maintenance and Facilities openings. The discussion turned to whether we go with an RFP or negotiate with our choice directly. Since the procurement code allows for this exception and the process is reduced in time by 2 months, a motion was made to use professional services section of the procurement code to allow for a non-competitive search for a recruitment company in hiring the city administrator and chief of police. Councilmember Rice seconded, and the motion passed unanimously. I'm not quite sure why the Public Works assistant position was not included in the motion, but we can refer to that in our next meeting. So again, this is on the agenda for later, so we won't vote on it at this point. Right? Okay. Then we went back to old business A, and the discussion of the Muni Code regarding standing committees is deferred until August. Old business B, Public Works Assistant Director of Maintenance and Facilities, has been approved through Ways and Means and included in the 18-19 budget, so there's no need in discussing that, except that I do want to say that we did have a very intense discussion about it and the need for it. Old business C and D were deferred until August. C is consideration of changing the frequency of performance reviews. D is discussion of the city's current human resource processes, protocols, and tools, and we've deferred it until August when we think other tasks are going to be more pending for us. And then new business A, the budget discussions were made, but we've already gone through those in Ways and Means. Business B, new business B, citizen committees will be discussed in August with the mini-code discussions on standing committees. This is where we're talking about ad hoc citizen committees to help in according with the standing committees. However, it is agreed that the only way these ad hoc committees work is if there is a specific project and a timeline established and a work product is developed. So we'll be looking at that in August. With no miscellaneous business, our next scheduled meeting is May 8th at 5 p.m. The City of Isle of Palm's current vacancies by department: Police Department, Chief of Police, part-time Animal Control Officer, and the department continues to work on filling the last Beach Service Officer opening. We currently have 9. Other departments have no vacancies: Fire, Public Works, Recreation, Building, or City Hall. And last but not least, March Safety Sweepstakes winners: Recreation Department is Aaron Sweet, Police Department Officer Daniel Tyson, Fire Department Jeff Stickney, and Public Works Tony Cease. And so ends my report.
Great report. Thank you very much. I didn't time it, so I think I'm going to say you're tied again. We had a three-way tie. Real property.
Okay. We met at 4 p.m. Tuesday, April 10th. All council members of the committee were present, as was city administration. We approved unanimously the meetings from the prior minutes. Citizens' comments, Shane Ziegler from Barrier Island Eco Tour spoke, graciously offered for council that for those who have not been able to go out on one of his tours to do that as an education for us on council. He also offered that, you know, in general, it's a service in that over 12,000 students per year come through that program, and that it's not just a boat tour, but he has people that are very well educated with master's degrees operating those tours and offering educational purpose to our students. Other comments, Jay Clark from Morgan Creek offered that it's that time of year to start having the parking discussions again about what do we do to try to more cooperatively manage the site with the marina operator and optimize that ability, and asked that the council or a council member participate in those discussions to help facilitate those. We had a discussion on the boating infrastructure grant, Tier 1 funds that were awarded to the city for replacement of aged marina refueling infrastructure. So this is we were awarded a grant that would allow for the replacement of the fuel dock. And I might have asked that Linda might be a little more adept at explaining this in more detail than I, but it's for the fuel line from the new underground storage tanks down under the dock and under the fuel dock, along with the new dispensers, hose reels, and the fuel dock itself, and a portion of that of the hut. The matching grant award is in the amount of $70,000. Now with that, the total cost of the project is $275,000, of which the eligible portion is $141,000, to which the city would have to pay 50% of that. We have time on this, so there's really no reason not to pursue it moving forward. We have roughly a 5-year timeline. Desiree's nodding, so I must be doing okay on this. A 5-year timeline, or 3 years. I thought we had 5 years in total, but working backwards, we have 3 years, so we don't have to do anything at this point, but move forward and get the permitting process started to understand whether or not we actually want to move forward with this. The marina operator, Brian, was asked, what's the condition of the fuel docks? I think he was very succinct when he said, we don't think they'll last 3 years. So, you know, we have a problem, you know, heads nodding in the back. We have a problem that's going to have to be addressed over some period of time. So if there's monies available, we'll probably move forward with those monies. Moving forward, you know, one other comment I make that we did not in this current budget put money aside specifically for repairs at the marina. So I do think, as I reported in the committee meeting, that we're going to have to address specifically when and how we put funds into the marina for any of the dock repairs that are required down there. We had old business discussion of the marina site parking as related to current leases and city ordinances. So I drove this as a discussion, as we on council have limited more intensely the available parking outside the marina infrastructure itself. So there's discussion tonight on 41st Avenue, on Waterway Boulevard, in that we have a number of businesses operating within the marina site, and as those businesses thrive, we do not have enough parking within the marina site for those businesses. So this facilitated the discussion, at which I asked the marina manager to report on the business count within the marina. He graciously did so, and there are 10 under leased business leases and 9 fishing guides under business agreement with the marina operator. And by the way, the business tenants, that includes the 4 leases that the city holds. So there's 19 businesses operating within the marina site right now. There are probably an additional list that I've seen of about 10 unlicensed other charter boats. All of these are creating parking demands. Hence, we have a problem that this council needs to resolve over time, working with the tenants in the marina. What are we going to do with the parking? Either contain it within the marina site or find other accommodations. Moving forward, we had discussion, I think a good discussion about potentially revisiting using the Water and Sewer Department's land that's adjacent to the marina site, and to find whether or not they would be amenable at this time to working with the city to secure that site in a way that we could accommodate the employees. If you look at the ATM reports themselves as they came out during the referendum, if you just took the leased businesses, the 4 leases, there's several hundred required parking places, right? So we know we have a problem. We're trying to work with city administration and others to find, how do we accommodate the businesses and allow them to operate their businesses at the same time, not impinge on the neighborhoods. So we are moving forward with those discussions. Trying to get through this as quick as possible because I'm under the gun because I'm the last one
We're
to
going
do
to give
this.
you an extra second.
Okay.
You're past it.
So we also discussed with the marina manager the plans for residential and non-residential launch fees and seasonal launch passes and for resident slip availability. To date, there's been no real change to that. Annual passes are still being sold to residents and non-residents. Launch fees did increase, I think, as of April 1st to the $20, which was passed by council back in 2016. The genesis of this discussion was there are toggles that the operator has available that potentially do cut down on the traffic coming in and out of the marina, but also potentially have an impact on the business. But we have a demand problem there. We have a capacity and demand problem that, together we're going to have to figure out how to address. There was a suggestion by Councilmember Ferencz that the police department get actively engaged in the management and enforcement of parking at the marina site. And it was the consensus by Captain Usry that the only police engagement we've had is the enforcement of parking issues as cars move into the neighborhoods, but we have not been actively participating, and I believe did not feel that it was practical to actively participate on site as the proxy service for determining who should park where. Councilmember Ferencz stated that the concerns really are safety inside the marina between vehicles, boats, golf carts, children, and other pedestrians, and I think we all acknowledge that we have an issue with safety down there as it was put forth during the referendum. Update on the Marina Bulkhead Rehabilitation Project. That work is wrapping up. This is a little bit out of date. I think the wrap-up date now is May 2nd, correct? Yes. Yeah, okay. So we should be finishing up that soon. Update on the front beach walkover and restroom renovations. That was expected to be completed within 3 weeks. I think that's about 1 week remaining, Douglas, at this point. So that'll wrap up as well. Beach restoration, as you, I think, all know, has been wrapped up. We had one last remaining subline pipe to remove. And we've already covered the money of the $26,400 to do plants for the dunes. That was covered earlier in the report. The other item was the Hill Report expense alignment to the current fiscal year. We do have substantial fixes that are required on the public safety building and some of the other city infrastructure that we've got to align with this current budget. We're working through that with the budget cycle to see where the monies are available and how much we're allocating to the project. I had also brought up the discussion of business licenses. I think we've probably closed on that item at this point, but it was suggested to me that Sullivan's Island has displays in their vehicles as to business licenses that are operating in the city appropriately. It was brought up by the city administrator that there's as many concerns with trying to take that approach as there are benefits to that, and it was put off for later discussion, such as, somebody has a second vehicle, plus the administration of that. Councilmember Ward brought up we would have an administrative issue with that as well. And the final item was discussed was the tax bill that the city was presented with by the county for $79,000 in real estate tax, and the fact that the city has appealed that. There was discussion among the marina tenants that, frankly, any downside risk is on the tenants, should the county decide that we're not just looking at 1 year or any reevaluation of that that came back in excess of the $79,000 per the leases of the tenants that we have. Those taxes are borne by the tenants. So while the city has to pay that bill, it still falls on the tenants for that. That concludes the report. We keep changing the date of the next meeting. We've just changed it again to May 10th, 4 o'clock. Final answer.
Great report, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm a little concerned about a council member working with tenants on the parking issue. I just feel like that should be a staff member, if anyone, or they should work it out themselves. It just feels very messy to me and not like a very good idea, and legally I just can't. I'm
I
wondering.
can clarify. I think there's a difference between working with and fixing and recommending or facilitating a meeting. So I did not.
I just feel like it shouldn't be one council member. If anything, it should just be staff. So I'm wondering if that's even something for the attorney, like if it just feels like a very odd precedent to put that.
Let me check into that and I'll report back to you on that.
It is time consuming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, but I just don't know if it feels like it's a real kind of a gray, kind of an odd.
Well, I have citizens wanting to meet with me all the time.
But these are our tenants.
But there's others, though, that have business concerns and things like that. You know, I don't think that we need to restrict us from meeting with our constituents.
I don't think this is the same thing. I think it feels different to me, Jimmy. I'm just putting it out there so we're covering ourselves. It just feels like it could be,
Well, since we do have our city attorney here, this is a good time to ask her, is it okay for the chair of the Real Property Committee to be meeting with the tenants to discuss the parking?
I mean, I didn't really prepare for that question tonight. I can certainly think about it some more and give you some feedback back. Usually, what the recommendation is when we do our legal training is that staff is really the intermediary between council and the tenants, as well as contractors, anything like that. So that's typically what we normally say. I think this is an unusual situation. I just haven't looked at it, so.
We'll look into it, we'll get back then. Okay.
Comment. A follow-up to Jimmy's point. The distinction between a constituent, which has the right to request and ask for information for an elected official, is not only that they are tenants and have a business relationship with the city, but did they request that somebody on council facilitate?
Yes.
And that's a big distinction. And a facilitation role implies a lot different than being responsive to a constituent.
Good point. Okay. We'll stick into it still. Thank you very much for your comments. Just a little bit of housekeeping. In accordance with the Isle of Palm Procurement Code, Section 1-10-4B2, consideration of a non-competitive search for a professional recruitment company for hiring the city administrator and chief of police. I'd like to make that in a form of a motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd like to amend the motion to include, if I understand correctly from personnel, the deputy position for public works.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay, well, any discussion on that? We'll vote on the amendment first. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? None? Now for the original motion. All in favor?
Aye.
So have it. All right, thank you. Moving on to, let's see, we jumped. Reports from city officers, boards, and commissions. Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee, minutes are attached. Board of Zoning Appeals, minutes are attached. And again, for our residents out there, you can go to IOP.net and see all this, and read all this, or hear all this. Planning Commission, minutes are attached. Number 7, reports.
Yes, I do have a question. One of the things that got brought up, and I meant to bring this up previously when I talked about it for BOZA, during our municipal association meeting, they had indicated, the attorneys there had indicated, very rarely should you have a vote by special exception on the smallest occasion, and we do it monthly, a number of them at a time, basically for at-home occupancy. And he says anytime you have special exception votes, it's kind of a gray area. And he said basically if you're going through, he said you should basically look at changing our ordinance and going through, and if we're having people apply for business licenses, go through and put in on the business license, whether if it's going to be, they can just go through and apply through the business office, and the questions that the business office, or the BOZA normally would ask, the business office can go through and ask as well. But very rarely are we supposed to be utilizing special exception votes.
And
So-
again, I'm going to refer back to our attorney, because BOZA is a quasi-judicial, so
That's right. So there are certain criteria that are set forth in the statute, the state statutes, about what you have to meet in order to pass a special exception, and they are pretty onerous. But usually the special exceptions that we get are for home occupations, which seem to be able to meet all of those criteria that are in the state statute. We could certainly look into changing the ordinances to address special home occupations specifically, but right now they're just treated as, this a special exception under the zoning code, I guess.
Right, and that was just an interesting point. Throughout that meeting, they were talking about the fact that nobody else besides our city utilized special exception.
For home occupation.
For the same thing over and over again.
It's like special exceptions are similar to variances, and
Correct.
so you have to prove to the Board of Zoning Appeals that you've met all the certain criteria. So I know for those, there's signage and traffic and parking and all those kinds of things that are attendant to it, and so they're vetting those things out. But we could certainly look at that.
So is this something that we want to do then? Right.
Oh, I'd like for the city administrator to look into it. It's based on recommendation from our municipal association that we should not be utilizing.
Well, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page and clear on
And see if
this.
we can follow up with it.
Great, thank you. Reports from special or joint committees, none. Petitions received, referred, disposed of, none. Bills already in possession. Here's where we start slowing down. I'm going to make a motion for a second reading, an ordinance amending Title V, Planning and Development, Chapter 4, Zoning, Article 8. I'm going to read it all to you, I'm sorry. Flood damage prevention of the City of Isle Palms Code of Ordinances to provide a definition for the reference datum to be used for the base flood elevation shown on the flood insurance rate maps, to delete the time period for measuring substantial improvements, and to provide for a minimum elevation for new residential and non-residential construction. We actually had a public hearing prior to this meeting tonight. And
have a
this,
second.
Second.
Second? Any discussion?
Yeah, a lot of it, public hearing.
So it will be necessary, just to make sure we keep up with the procedure here of what your intent is, it will be necessary to amend this ordinance to include all of the changes that were incorporated since the last meeting, which were the things that Douglas reviewed. So you won't want to pass it in its prior form, but you want to pass
As
it
amended.
In its amended form.
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve this as amended.
Second.
Second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? And now,
And I am confident that you guys wanted to waive the reading as part of that motion.
okay, now here's the fun part.
I
here.
meant to say that.
Motion to defer indefinitely sections B, C, and D. The first one has to do with subdivision of lots to be connected to sewer. The second one has to do with houses being within 150 feet being connected to sewer. And the last one, on-site sewage disposal systems require mandatory connection to public sewer, where public sewer is available upon the sale or transfer of property. I'm making that a motion to defer indefinitely.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I read through this. I guess a little bit uncomfortable with indefinite deferral. I think the right answer is to send it back to the planning committee to come back to us again. They put substantial time and frankly have more expertise than we do sitting up here to make those recommendations.
You want to make that?
So I...
Well, may I add something before you make a motion, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
this is more an issue of needing to work with the Isle of Palms Water and Sewer and work on that memorandum of understanding that you all talked about. So the delay is more associated with the need to do that than necessarily going back to the Planning Commission. Certainly you can send it back to the Planning Commission if that's the will of the group, but what we're waiting for and what we need to get done is some work with the Isle of Palms Water and Sewer Commission. So that's the reason for the delay.
Having said that, I still believe the MOU should go back to them for review as well before it's presented in final form to the council.
That's no problem.
Deferring it indefinitely will allow you to bring it back. So I just didn't want to keep dragging it out month to month because
Because we keep dragging it out month to month.
we don't have any action right now with the Water and Sewer Commission. So I just think that we can always bring it back. We probably want to do first reading on it again anyways because I feel like they're going to have a lot of changes. But, you know, it doesn't, you're not voting it down. I mean, it's not disappearing. It's just that we need to put some time, and it just will help you all not to have to look at this every single month and keep deferring it.
And we allocated money to do that.
Yes, we did.
In conjunction with the Water and Sewer Commission, so are you still?
No, to me, as long as the planning committee is engaged in the process, I'm okay with it. I don't want us as a council and administration without the benefit of planning committee. I think they put a lot of effort and good thought into this, that we keep them in the process.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and do you want to make that as a motion, or are you good with what we got?
I'm good with what we have.
Okay. Any more discussion?
I just want to be sure now, we're deferring it indefinitely, just so that it's not going to recur to us.
It won't be on the agenda every month.
But in reading the Planning Commission minutes, there was concerns about the fact that the Planning Commission never saw the ordinance as written. It was presented to us, and they felt that there was some ambiguity in the verbiage, and they would like to be able to see ordinances before they come to us first. Right, Douglas?
Yes.
Okay. So what we're saying is that these will go back to Planning Commission for review of the verbiage, as well as giving time for the memorandum and everything else that's going on. So they can be doing one thing while everything else is going on, and they're part of that conversation.
Help us, is this going to go back to the planning where they?
So I would think it would be good. I don't know that what the contents of the memorandum of understanding or agreement will be. So I think whatever that is, I think it would be good for that to go back to them.
Right.
Correct.
So
Okay. So moved on that point. That's exactly what I was.
So you're going to make an amendment to that?
That was an amendment.
That was the amendment. Second.
Second. Any more discussion on that?
Deferring it back to the Planning Commission.
Yes.
Deferring the section.
The MOU.
Yeah, I'm
sorry.
Okay, so maybe instead of deferring this indefinitely, we just, instead of deferring it definitely, make a motion, I'll withdraw my motion, and we'll send it back to the Planning Commission.
Draw a second, if I was one second.
Okay, so now you want to make a motion to send it to planning?
I will make a motion to send it to the planning committee.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion, yes, ma'am.
But I think it needs to be deferred indefinitely so that it doesn't keep recurring back to us. It's the only way. The motion has to say that,
At the
right?
next Planning Commission meeting, then they don't have to recommend it to
Right.
council.
Right.
They can
And it
just
doesn't
say they're
come
going
back.
to wait until Isle of Palms Water and Sewer
Okay,
Commission
I
weighs
just
in on
wanted
it.
to make sure we
And then
weren't.
after all that work is done, then
Then
they
it comes
can
back.
recommend that it come back to
It's
you.
not going to stay on the month,
It
every
may be a
month.
few months.
Okay.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays?
You got that, Riri?
We have one nay. Okay. Moving on, item E, second reading. I'd like to make this as a motion, an ordinance amending Title 9, Offenses, Chapter 2, Offenses Against Public Peace, Section 9-2-5, Noise of the City of Isle of Palms Code of Ordinances to change the hours during which pile drivers and other apparatus attended with loud and disturbing noises may be operated to provide for exceptions.
Second.
Well, so
And-
moved, so moved and second.
All right, any discussion?
And I know your motion was to waive the reading, right?
The way the reading.
And to include the amendments since last meeting as well.
Yes, ma'am, exactly.
So,
Now-
Mr. Mayor, one question. So I did read this in total earlier, and you're right, I'd love to waive the reading of all these. This is reflective of
The Wild Dunes?
the Wild Dunes, same restrictions that are in place, so we have singular restrictions on the entire island, is that correct?
Right.
And no working on Sundays.
And no, yeah, right.
The same holidays and the same hours.
Yes, yeah.
Now, the other part of the ordinance that deals with, under emergency situations to
Sure.
get special permission and for residents to be able to do work on their own homes was taken from the Sullivan's Island ordinance, and that remains in there.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Okay, I would love for it to go forward right now, but as for the parking, the parallel parking, we have several things that need to be ironed out. We have no sign plan to go forward with, and we have no encroachment permit from the SCDOT. So I think we need a motion to defer.
So moved.
Second.
Second. And any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Nays? Okay.
Is this deferred until the next meeting?
Yes, correct.
Okay, this is going down here to introduction to bills, resolution, proclamations.
First reading title only.
Okay, these are all first reading, no votes. First reading by title only, ordinance 2018-06.
No, you got F.
You have to vote.
You meant no discussion. First reading, no discussion.
That's right, thank you. An ordinance to raise revenue and adopted budget
Did we skip?
for the city of Isle Palm, South Carolina for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019.
The tall one.
The second one, first reading.
We have to
We need a
vote.
motion. We want to
Need a
have
vote.
a vote on the readings.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, first reading by title only. 2018-07, ordinance amending the title of motor vehicles and traffic, chapter 2, stopping, standing, parking vehicles, general provisions of the city of Isle Palm's code and ordinance to provide additional regulations related to parking and loading zones, to increase the fine for parking in violation of loading zone regulations to $100, to declare certain parked vehicles as nuisances, and to provide for the immobilization, I can't say that word too well, sorry, and impoundment of certain vehicles, to provide reference to the state law related to handicap parking, and to amend administrative provisions related to deposit of monies collected from pay parking fees and penalties.
I'll make that as a motion.
Motion, second. And discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, first reading, by title only.
You can discuss.
That goes in?
Do I hear it?
Okay.
First reading by title only, ordinance 2018-08, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator of the city of Isle Palms to execute the necessary documents to enter into that certain third amendment to commercial lease agreement between the city of the Isle Palms and Barrier Islands LLC, attached hereto as Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein by reference.
I move.
Second. Motion, a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Any opposed?
We're on the other end of the table down there. We got to remember to ask that.
You're way down here. Resolution approving the law enforcement mutual aid. Where's that? Here we go. We have two resolutions. I think I passed one down a little while ago.
Yeah.
A resolution of the City Council of the Isle Palms approving a law enforcement mutual aid agreement with the town of Mount Pleasant Police Department. Do I need to read the whole thing?
No, you don't.
All right. This is a mutual aid agreement with Mount Pleasant.
Motion to approve.
Motion to
Second.
approve.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on. A resolution by the City of Isle Palms to adopt a policy for the use of the city's message boards, which we've already discussed.
Motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? None. And I think
The streaming for the
business.
miscellaneous authorization for entering into an agreement with SCDOT for streaming video through the Traffic Management Center. Now, this has to do with SCDOT 511, and we really have no
Yes,
choice on that.
Absolutely, it's good.
So, does this need to be as a motion?
You want a motion?
I'd like to make that as a motion.
Okay.
Second?
And a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Okay, now, I hate to do this to you. Budget public hearing, 5:45, Tuesday, May 22nd. I think that's somebody's birthday.
Always on my birthday. It's always every
Favorite
year.
subject.
In council chambers. And our next meeting shall be at 6 p.m. Tuesday, May 22nd. Following that, in council chambers. So we're going to have a fun day on your birthday.
Motion to adjourn.
I heard a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays?
Oh,
Aye.
man.
How long?
Hour and 8 minutes.
Wow, that is a record for us.